Okay, everyone, about ready to get started here. Just to go over a few things. What we're going to do is I'm going to pause occasionally to take questions. You'll be muted until I pause. And if you have a question, we will then, I ask you to then raise your hand. You'll see there's a little button on your screen where you can raise your hand. And I will then ask you to, I will unmute you and you'll be able to answer your question. So let's, Jai Sherry, do you have a question? Okay, we're just going to go ahead. So today we're going to be talking about Excel. This is going to be Excel basics. So let me get up what we're going to be working with today. Okay, so everyone, this is Excel. So Excel is a spreadsheet program. And the way a spreadsheet works is it's divided into a series of rows and columns. Every row is identified by a letter, and the columns are identified by a letter, and rows are identified by a number. The intersection of any sort of row and column is called a cell. And a cell is identified by that row and by the letter of the column followed by the number of the row. So right here now, I'm clicking on cell. This would be cell B2 because it's in column B and row number 2. Over here, we have cell L8 because it's in column L, row 8. And this continues. This spreadsheets go on for very, very far. Once you get past the alphabet, it starts going to, let's just see, starts going AA, AB, etc. And it goes down for any numbers. I'm not sure there's an end anymore. So spreadsheets can be very, very big. We're not going to be working with a particularly big one today. Okay, up here at the top of the screen, you have what's called the ribbon. And this is where you'll find all your commands to be used during Excel. The ribbon is divided into a series of tabs. And when you click on those tabs, the commands that are in the ribbon will change. And if you don't see the command you want to use, usually you'll have to click on a new tab and you will find the command there. Now, we're going to be spending most of today in the Home tab. So we're going to be mostly working in there. In the future class, we might be in some other tabs. Okay. So one thing you do have to pay attention to a lot of when you're working in Excel is what your mouse pointer looks like. So you see here right now, my mouse pointer is a big fat plus sign. This allows me to click on cells and just go to them. Notice here, if I put my mouse pointer here, it turns into a black plus sign. This is for something called Autofill, which we'll be discussing a little later. And if you put your mouse pointer here between the lines between the columns, it turns into this black line with 2 arrows, and that can let you adjust the width of a column. And you can also select entire columns or entire rows. This is mostly a problem when you're trying to click and drag, because if you try to do something, say you want to move or select some cells, and you have it here, and you go here, and you go to autofill, it'll copy over the cells you already have. So you'll see how autofill works a little bit later in the class. Okay. So the main thing Excel is used for a lot is math. And this is very important when you come to thinking about your sheets, how to set them up, how do you want your information displayed? What kind of information are you dealing with? And how do you want it to be displayed? So we're going to be doing today, we're going to be working with the sales for a fictional store. And we're going to have sales in a certain number of categories for the space of a year. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the name of my sheet. And this is sales by category. Okay, so I've just filled that in. Now you might notice here, this goes over from cell A1, it goes over into B, but it's really fully contained within cell A1. It doesn't actually go into B. In fact, if I type something in B, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see what the full content of cell A1 was, but it's still there. If you look up here in that little bar there, you'll see that everything you typed into that cell is still there. Delete this. Okay, so we're going to start our spreadsheet. And one of the very important things we're going to do here is what's called a column header. And column headers are the what you put at the top of your columns. And usually you want this to describe the information that's underneath the cells, underneath the columns. This is especially true if you're going to be using your spreadsheet in conjunction with another program like Word or PowerPoint. They have to be able to understand the information, and that having proper column headers will really help you with that. So we're going to start here. It's going to be category, and then we're going to put in the months. So I'm going to start here with January, and then we're going to put in February. Now we can keep doing this for the next 12 months, but there's actually a neat little trick here, and this is autofill. And autofill can do a lot of different things, but one of the things it does do is if it sees you're typing months, you can just use that to copy them all out. So you just stretch it out and it fills in the rest of the months. You don't have to type them in yourself. Now we're going to put in here for the columns what we're going to have, the different categories we have. So we have armor, boots, staffs, swords, and bows. Okay, so we filled all those in. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can enter in data into a spreadsheet. You can use the arrow keys to move around. You can use the tab key, or you can use the mouse to click and drag. How you put your data in the spreadsheet is whatever works best for you. So right now we have here some sales information. These are our numbers. I'm going to put these in. Sorry, my fault, didn't have the number lock on. Okay, so those are all those numbers entered in. So I'm not going to have you sit here and just watch me and enter in numbers. I'm going to switch over to a sheet where I've already filled in the rest of the numbers for this particular sheet. And I'm going to take a pause here, see if anyone has any questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Okay, no questions. Okay, so let's move on. So sometimes you've created a spreadsheet and you realize that you need to put in more information. You need to insert a row or column to your spreadsheet. So we're going to start by, we have one more product category. We forgot to include shields. And we're going to put that so it's between swords and bows. And when you want to insert a row, you click into the row below where you want your new row to go. So I need to click any cell basically in row 8. And then I go up here. And here we have the insert command. And this is what you use when you want to add cells to a spreadsheet. There's also an insert tab, but you will not find the command to insert a row or column on the insert tab. Yeah, it's a little confusing. So what you want here is the insert command. And here you have your option. You can insert cells, or you can insert entire rows or columns. I'm going to insert a sheet row. So I'm just going to put an entire row in. And then I'm going to put in the information for shields in that row. Okay, so we filled out our new row. I also want to add a column here because you'll see here I have one that's called percentage of sales, but I don't have a place to add up the totals for each category. So I want to add that there. Again, same thing, you go to the insert command, and this time we're going to pick a sheet column, and it inserts that new column to the left of the column you were already in. So we're just going to call this column totals, total. Okay, so now we have all our columns in place. We're going to now, you might notice a few of these columns here. You can see here with September and November and December. They're a little cramped. There's not enough room in those columns for the full label. So we're going to adjust the column width so that they fit correctly. And we're just going to first do something to adjust the column width of all the columns we currently have information in. So I'm going to select the columns I want to adjust. I'm going to go here to the format command. And from there, I'm going to go to auto fit column width. This automatically adjusts the column width to fit whatever the largest word or number is in that particular column. As you can see, I don't think this looks very nice. So I'm going to actually change this instead so that we have a fixed column width. And that's going to be so that every single column is the exact same width. So again, I'm going to select what I want to change. I'm going to go to the format, and then I'm going to go here to column width. And then I'm going to put in a number. I'm going to start with 12 and see how that looks. And if I think that looks spread out enough, or if I think it looks maybe too spread out, I can adjust back and forth. Let's see if I take this back and I reset it to, let's try 10. Yeah, that's a little more compact without getting out of whack. So here we go. We have all our columns set. We have our column width set. Let's go on. And we're going to start now working with formulas. So before we do that, I want to take a short break and see, does anyone have any questions about setting up a spreadsheet or column width or anything like that? Remember, you just click on raise your hand and I will unmute you so you can talk. Okay, so still no questions. All right, so we're going to move on. Now we're going to start working with our first formula. Okay, so let's say we want to add up what the sales were for the month of January. So we want to add up all these numbers here. And the way you do a formula in Excel is you always start out by typing the equal sign, and then you would put in the cells that you want to include in this math. So we're going to start here. The first cell we want would be cell B4 here. So I'm just going to click on it, and you'll see coming up here in the formula bar right here, the formula is going to show up as we're typing it in. So we're going to add B4 plus B5 plus B6, and then just so on down the list. So we're just adding up. It doesn't really matter if they go out of order for addition, so I'm just going to leave that like that. And we're just going to add up all those. And we get our total down here. Now that's a fair amount of typing, and it's also going to be even more when we're going to go over here and add up the totals for each category. So there's actually an easier way to do an addition formula like that, in which case you type equals sum and a parenthesis, and then you just highlight all the cells you want to include in that, close the parenthesis, and that gets you your formula. Okay, so if you look in the formula now, it's saying equals sum C4 colon C10. And C4 to C10 is the cell range that it's doing this addition across. Okay, so now I'm going to use Autofill to fill this in for the rest of the months of the year. And what Autofill does with a formula is it looks at the original, and it says here sum C4 to C10, and it notes that it is in cell C12. So when it copies itself to cell D12, it changes the formula, so it's D4 colon D10. So that's the way Autofill, it bases the new formula based on the location of the original formula. So location really means everything in Excel, so pay attention to where it is, and you can get those formulas to work that way. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go over here, and we want to add now these numbers across here. And so we're going to type in the formula there. We're going to use the sum formula again. So it's equals sum, open the parenthesis, and then just select all the cells. We just want the one row. In this case, it's B4 to M4. Hit enter, and that adds up all those numbers. And then again, we can use autofill to fill it in for the rest of our cells. Okay. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to another formula to do the percentage of sales. So before we do that, I just want to see, does anyone have any questions? Okay, still no questions. Okay, so we're going to be now calculating for each category and each month what the percentage of sales was. So to do that, we actually need the number for the total sales. And you could actually get this two ways, because if the sheet is set up properly and the math is working, if you add these numbers together, or you add these numbers together, you should get the same answer. So I'm going to put in a formula. I'm actually going to use this one here to calculate the total sales for the year. So this is our number here, the total sales for the year. And to find out, what the percentage of sales of the total sales for the year were done in January, it's very simple. We just divide the sales for the month of January by the sales total. So I put this here, I type in equals, and the sales for the month of January, which is cell B12, divided by, and to do division in Excel, you use the slash. This one right here, cell N12. And I hit the enter key, and it calculates out the percentage. We'll be getting to how you show it as a percentage in a few minutes. Now, you want to say, okay, so let's use autofill to fill it in for the rest of our months of the year. And that doesn't work. According to this, you're trying to divide by 0, and you can't do that. So what happens is, Excel, when it does autofill, it looks at the cell where the formula started, and then it looks at the new location. So it's looking here, it's looking at this formula and saying it's B12 divided by N12. And I'm moving it to column C. So it's picking up here and it's saying, okay, so the first one should be C12. But the next one is also moving over and saying it should be O12. And there's nothing in O12, so now you're dividing by 0 and it won't work. So you can't use autofill simply like that. What you need to do is make a change to the original formula right here. And you have to make this reference here to N12 into what's called an absolute cell reference. And what an absolute cell reference does is no matter where you copy the formula, it's always going to refer back to cell N12. And it's very simple. You simply type a $sign before the N and then before the 12. And now, when I copy that formula, that one, don't need one there, it changes the formulas. So it's here in column M. The first one is cell M12, but it's also referring here to cell N12, regardless of where in the spreadsheet it is. It always refers to cell N12. We're going to do the same thing now here for percentage of sales by category. So it's equal, in this case, cell N4 divided by cell N12. But we're going to put in the $signs right from the beginning here. And then we can just use autofill. Copy that over. Okay, so any questions about the formulas? Okay. Jai Shri, do you have a question?
Yes. For the formula, yes, you say $sign and 12, but if you don't put it, what that That thing I missed it.
Okay. So that's adding the dollar signs makes it as absolute cell reference. And what that means is when you use autofill to copy it, it will not change that cell reference. So no matter where in the spreadsheet you copy that formula to, it'll always refer back to cell N12.
Okay, but
Okay?
right. So before you didn't put N12, so it was taking a zero value for that one, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because of
Yes, it was.
why it was taking zero? Because
There was nothing in those cell it was referring to.
referring to, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was like looking at the cell, there was nothing there, so they were saying 0.
Zero on the total, right? On the 12, number 12, it was nothing showing on that one, right?
Yeah,
That
so it was
one.
like, yeah, so when I copied the formula, it moved both the cell references over one column, and when it did that with the N12, it was referring here to cell O12, which was empty, and that's why it was trying to divide by 0.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank
Okay?
you. Thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, we're going to move on. And we're going to talk a little bit about number formatting. So we're dealing here, we've got both currency and we also have percentages. But right now, they're not very friendly looking, especially the percentages. They're just these long decimals. So we're going to use number formats to put in the dollar sign and to change these into percentages. So like in a lot of things, you need to select the cells you want to change the format for. So I'm going to start with these, and I'm going to change these into currency. And there you can go here. This is the number section in the ribbon. And you have right here, you can pick your currency. So I'm going to go with dollars, but you can see here you could do a couple others. And that's not the whole list. So if you went down to more, you'd see more. So I'm going to switch this over to dollars. And you'll notice here now we're getting this thing where some of these numbers are coming up as a bunch of hashtags. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that number. It means the column width is too small to display the number once we added in the dollar sign and the extra decimal points. So we're going to make another adjustment to column width. So let's see. And let's do 13. And now you can see these numbers are back. So it was just that the columns were too small to display them. Okay, so now we're going to do the percentages. So I'm going to select those. And again, up here in the number, I'm just going to pick percent. And that changes to some nice friendly percentages. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And pick percent. And there you go. Okay, so I do want to mention one more thing about number formatting when you're working in Excel. It's a very specific problem that has to deal with zip codes. So we live in a area of the country that has zip codes that start with the number 0. And if you start a zip code with the number 0 in Excel, Excel doesn't like that. So if I'm going to type in the zip code for Parsippany here, it's 07054. And when I hit the enter key, Excel changes that to 7,054 because that 0 being at the front of the number doesn't make any sense to it. It shouldn't be there. If it's a number, it shouldn't start with a 0 like that. Fortunately, there is a very easy way to fix this. If you have to do an address book and you have to type in some zip codes that start with a 0, hit the apostrophe key, then type in your number and hit the enter. And now you can see your zip code. You don't see the apostrophe, but it's just that apostrophe is telling Excel, this isn't a number, this is text, and you need to treat it like text, not like a number. And that's very important because how Excel deals with numbers and how Excel deals with text is two very different things. And if Excel sees something as a number, or more other way around, if Excel sees a number as text, it won't use it in any math and your formulas won't work. So you do have to watch what you're doing. And in general, when you're typing numbers into Excel, you don't want to include anything extraneous. So don't bother typing the dollar signs, don't type the commas, nothing really except the numbers and the decimal points if you need it. And then later on, if you want those things, you would use the number formatting options to put in the currency symbols and those kind of things. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on number formatting? Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on and we're going to look at making the spreadsheet look a little bit nicer. First thing we do have here is we do have a slight problem with this one column. It is cutting off that percentage of sales, but we're just going to use Autofit to make sure that column does fit correctly. Okay. So now I'm just going to be doing some, font changes to make it look a little bit nicer. I'm going to start up here. And you do font and changes much like you would in Word or pretty much any program, which is you select the text you want to change the font on, and then you would just make the changes up here in the font section. So I'm going to make this bold, and I'm going to make this 14 point, so it's larger. Also going to make these right up here bold as well, and these as well. So I made all those text bold. I'm also going to make it so that these numbers here for the totals stand out as well by making them bold. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to be doing a little work with the alignment. And first we're going to center the months. So I'm just going to select all those. And then I'm going to click here on the center alignment here. And you'll notice it centers that in the column. So when you use a center left or right alignment in Excel, it centers or left aligns or right aligns your content within the column. But we have up here a title that's sales by category. And let's say we want that centered across the whole page. If that's the case, you need to select all the cells you want to center it across, and then use the command here, merge and center, which essentially makes this into one giant column for this row, and then centers it there. So now we have this, it's centered up there. Okay. Okay, so right now, if we were going to print this spreadsheet out, we wouldn't have any of these lines that are dividing it on the screen. There is a quick way to do that, which is to use the print grid lines option. But we're actually going to put in some more borders and shading to make this look a little bit nicer. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, we're going to put a border, heavy border, around the whole thing. Okay, so that's all around. And the borders command is here. And you click on the drop down. And you have a couple of different borders here you can select from. We're just going to start with a thick outside border. And that's just going to draw a heavy line around the entire spreadsheet. We also want to have some borders inside. So I'm going to select the cells again. We want to put those borders on. And I'm going to go here to the borders command. And we don't have on this drop-down list inside borders. So we're going to go down to the more borders. And we're going to select the thin one here. And then we're going to click here for inside. And notice on this little diagram, it's showing you what borders are there. So you have here the heavy outside border around the edges, and then the thin border inside. All right, there we go. Okay, so now I want to add some thick borders between on the top and bottom of the top row, and also the total row. Now, if you want to select two different groups of cells that don't touch each other, you can select one, hold down the Control key, and then select the next group. So now we have these two rows selected, and we need to go down to here, and we're going to go to more borders, and we want one of the thicker borders here, and we want to go and put the top and the bottom, and then say OK. And now we have those thick borders at the top and bottom. You know what, I'm going to look at this. Okay. So now we have all the borders in place. Let's add a little bit of shading. So that's going to be color that's going to be in the background. And I'm actually going to do it to those same two rows. And then I'm going to click here on the paint bucket. And then from here, I can pick any sort of color I want. And let's go with the blue. A little lighter. There we go. Okay. Now, one of the effects of all the shading we put in, I don't think I need this row here anymore. So I'm going to get rid of it. So I'm just going to click to select the row. I'm going to go up here to the delete command. And click here and click delete sheet rows. And now your row is out of place. Okay. So any questions on borders and shading? Okay. So we're now going to, let's say we have now these categories, but let's say we want to put them in alphabetical order. So what we need to do is we need to select the cells we want to put in order, and we want to leave the total and percentage of sales out of this selection. As well as not include the category. And then go here, we're going to say sort smallest to largest. And it should, oh, didn't work. What did it do? Oh, it's sorting by the last column. Okay, let's try that again. And that, yeah, so it decides what column to sort based on the one you started selecting in. So if you're going to do that by the categories here, you wanted to start there to do the selection. So yeah, so now it's in alphabetical order. Okay. We've got this really nice looking sheet here right now. So let's see what we want. Let's say we wanted to print this. We're going to go to File and then to Print. And as you can see here, we have a bit of a problem that our sheet is being cut off. So you're only going up to May here on the screen. So we can do that. So there's a couple of different things you can do to manage this. First thing is to switch the page orientation. Right now it's in a portrait orientation. We're going to switch it to a landscape, which is going to turn it on its side. That still has only gotten us like half the year here. So we have another option here, which is called scaling. And scaling lets you change the size of the text and print on the screen so that it can fit in certain your page. So we have a couple different options here. Fit all columns, fit the entire sheet, fit all rows. So depending on how your spreadsheet was set up, is you would pick which one of these works the best. We're going to go with fit all columns. And there we go. So now it fits on the page. The problem with this in this particular case is this would likely be very, very small and hard to read, unfortunately. So what we'd have to probably do here is we might have to change the page size to say legal paper, which gives us more room. And this would probably be something that you can read here. You may see here in the print preview that you're not seeing some of the lines. Don't worry, they're there. The screen just can't display them right now. So now we have this set up on the screen. And this is very nice looking at sales by category. We've got the totals, the percentages. We have all this information, except we don't know what this place's store is. We don't have any other information. We don't know what date this is. There's nothing, none of that is included within our spreadsheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this information, and we're going to add it as part of a header and footer for this spreadsheet. So I'm going to click down here where it says page setup, and then I'm going to go into the header and footer tab. And this is where you can add a header and footer. And I'm going to start with a custom header. And we're going to do something very simple. We're just going to put the name of the store here in the center section. And I'm going to change the font so that it's somewhat bigger and bold so we can see it. I'm going to do that before I type in. Okay. And click OK again. And now we have this header. And this header would print on every sheet within our spreadsheet. If there was more than one page, that header would appear on every single one of the pages. I'm also going to add a footer. Let's go to the page setup and go to header and footer. And then I'm going to go to custom footer. And you see here again, we have the left, the center, and the right section. In our header, we only use the center section. In the footer, we're going to use the left and the right section. And we're going to use this to put in two pieces of information. First, the date. The date that this document was printed or prepared is going to be on the left section of the footer. And we're going to do that by using one of these insert commands here. So you have an insert date here. I'm going to click there, and it puts in this thing that says end date. And what this means is whatever day you open the spreadsheet and print it out, that date will appear in that section. So if I open this up tomorrow, it will say February 17th. If I open it up next week, it'll say February 25th. So it changes the date based on the date it's printed out. If you wanted the date to be one thing and never change, you could just manually type in the date. So if you always wanted the spreadsheet to say 2/16/2021, you would just type 2/16/2021 in the left section. For the right section, we're going to put the page numbers in. We'll start by typing in the word page, and then we're going to put in the number this page is. So that's the end page right there. But we're also going to put in space of, and then we're going to put in here, this is the total number of pages in the document. And I really recommend doing this with spreadsheets just because their tendency to have a column all on its own or something else go wrong in the printing where there's something on random pages. This makes sure the person you're giving this to knows that they have all the pages that are within the document. So I'm just going to click OK here. Okay, one more time. And it's a little hard to see. I zoom in here. Doesn't look like it. Okay, but right down here at the bottom of the page, you have the date on the left, and then you have the page 1 of 1 on the right. Okay, so our worksheet is done. It's ready to be printed. That's about all I have for class today. So I'm going to open this up. Does anyone have any questions? Could be about the class. It could be something else you tried in Excel. Anything. Okay, Chandu, what's your question?
I didn't get quite well with the option of printing scaling versus
Scaling.
versus the fits all the columns. What's the difference between two?
They're the same thing. A scaling is just a way of saying that. No scaling means that they're not reducing the size of the pages at all. Scaling means they're doing something to fit the pages on one sheet.
So you have to go in a scaling and then pick the options you want.
Yes.
So if you don't go there, you wouldn't get that option.
Yes. So if you don't want to change anything, it fits fine. You don't have to go and do anything there.
Right. And other one in the bottom left, you have an option of putting a dates, like a February 16th. That's the only one format, or could be any?
I think you can go into other date formats. Let me see if I can.
like spelling out February 16 or
No.
16 of February?
Probably can. I'm just not quite sure where
Okay,
it is.
I'll look around.
Yeah.
What are the other options, sir? Can you go quickly? The second one was the number, third
You
one,
have
number of the
basically page number, number of pages, date, time,
time, right?
what the file, where the file is located on the computer, the name of the file. If you're using a one with multiple sheets, it's in sheets. It's the name of the sheet, and you could put a picture in if you really wanted to.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Jean, what's your question? Jean, I can't hear you if you're talking.
Unmute.
Jean?
No questions.
Okay. Gina?
Yes, hi. I was just curious, what version of Excel are you using here?
This is the 2019.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah, Chandu, you have another question? I just saw we have a question. Is there a link? There a link to recording of this? We'll see about how we'll set that up. We haven't quite worked out all the details on how we're going to be. This is the first one I've actually recorded. How we're going to be putting this up. So hopefully we'll send out an email to the participants once we figure out what we're doing with that. Okay. Matthew, you have a question? Matthew?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Is there a website that has all the like the little functions of Excel, like for advanced things?
There's a couple of different places you can go to. One of the things we recommend is if you go to the library website, you'll find a link there to something called New Jersey Job and Career Accelerator that does have a number of computer tutorials within it. So that would actually probably be a pretty good place to start.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Gina, do you have another question?
Yes. Oh, kind of. Am I on mute?
No, you're not mute. Now you're
hi.
mute. Yeah, there.
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
I was curious. Are you going to have any other classes, like maybe advanced, like, VLOOKUP and pivot tables and things like that?
I have done pivot tables when we've taught in the library. I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to do them in the webinar format yet. We will be doing a more advanced class next week that will deal with using multiple sheets, some other formulas, and we'll probably be doing some charts in that class as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. Like I said, we'll try to get a link out to the recording when we figure out how we're gonna make that available. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.